How do you get funding for your short film? What are the best ways to build a strong crowdsource campaign for financial success? And what are some other creative ways you can find money for your short? In this video, we'll cover all those things and more. So let's get into the 5 best ways to get your film funded. If you're new here, I'm Jordan and welcome back to the channel. This channel is all about filmmaking techniques, the philosophy of art, creative and technical workflows, and essentially what filmmaking can teach us about life. All right, so what are the 5 best ways to get your short film funded? Number 1, crowdfunding. Platforms like Kickstarter, Seed and Spark, or Indiegogo allow filmmakers to raise funds from a wide variety of donors, especially if you're appealing to a very specific cause or a theme, and you can really tap into that theme's audience. The best ways to succeed are if you create a very compelling campaign page that has a really great description of your project, a great teaser video that clearly showcases what the project is and why you need the money and where the money is going to go towards. It also helps if you have a budget or at least some sort of pre-production documents or a list of locations or photos or any other visuals that you can showcase to people who come to your campaign page, and also why it's different from all of the other crowdsourced pages that are on these platforms. It also helps to have good perks. This is something that really can help incentivize people who are on the fence about sending $5 to $10 or $20 or not sending any at all. And enough of these smaller donations really do start to compound and make a huge difference in the long run of the campaign. Utilize social media, your personal networks, word of mouth to spread the word about your campaign, because it's essential that people know your campaign is happening, and they also have an easy way to immediately go to the page and send a donation. Have all your friends post about it. Even if they can't make a donation, it's really helpful to still have people share the campaign, so it might be able to reach people who would make a donation. In my experience, I've typically seen that projects of up to around $15,000 and less always tend to have a much higher success rate with these crowdsourced campaigns. When you start to get into the $20K and above budget range, it just becomes that much harder to be able to raise the adequate funds, especially because a lot of these crowdsourced campaigns often come from friends, family, and the direct inner circle of the filmmakers themselves. So it's important that you don't overreach your budget level, since oftentimes these don't actually get funded. They don't get 80% to get greenlit, which sometimes is the threshold. So if you do a crowdsource campaign, I always recommend go 15K or below, and even below that is probably better just for ensured success. The other thing to think about is I wouldn't do too many of these crowdsource campaigns. If you've already been asking your direct friends and family for money, you don't want to exhaust those resources. You don't want to annoy people, especially since, to be quite honest, a donation in a short film is just that. It's not an investment, and they won't see any sort of back end because it's very difficult for short films to make money. One other thing you can do to pair with your crowdsource campaign is something called fiscal sponsorship. Essentially, fiscal sponsorship is where you strike an agreement with a company that agrees to be your fiscal sponsor. And what that means is that it gives your project the 501c charity status, so that donors can write off their donations from their taxes that year as a charitable donation. So this can be a good way to incentivize higher net worth individuals with more money to donate, because they know they can write this money off and that will help them at their taxes at the end of the year. But something to consider if you do fiscal sponsorship is the fiscal sponsor often takes up to 10% or more of whatever funding you make. If you really don't want any extra cut to be taken from your budget, sometimes fiscal sponsorship is really not the way to go. I'll put a couple resources for different fiscal sponsors in the description below, and I will also put a link to a couple of the popular crowdsourced platforms, especially some that I've used in the past. Number 2, film grants and competitions. Numerous organizations, film festivals, or art councils offer grants and competitions specifically for short films. So you really want to make sure to do your thorough research here on all of the different grants that are out there. And it's really important to look at the niche of what your film is about, look at the subject matter, or if you have a very diverse crew, then there's a lot of grants that really cater to these different types of projects or the crew who's involved. If you really niche down and look at these specific grants that tailor more toward your project or the subject matter, this gives you a much better chance of actually receiving the grant funding and getting considered when you apply for these specific grants. Also, make sure to put together a compelling package, which also includes having a great pitch. In the same way that you would have a great pitch in the room to try to sell a film and convince that person they have to be a part of this, it's the same thing for these grant programs. They want to see that your story is interesting, it's topical, as in it has to be told now, and also, again, why are you the person to tell it and not some other filmmaker who's at the same caliber as you? If you can convince them of all these things, they're going to want to give you the funding since they think your potential is going to be the one that's going to use it in the best way. What's also helpful is to study past winners if you can. Look at other people that have won these grant programs in the past or other big filmmakers, and if you can see the projects that they submitted or their packages, or see if there's examples of this online, studying success is always a surefire way to replicate it. The other thing to consider is for these specific grant programs, there are people out there who you can actually hire that are grant writers. If you have the appropriate funding and it feels right, this is one other option that I want to introduce in case you don't feel the strongest about your grant writing or your pitching abilities on the page. To throw out a couple examples of these short film grants that are popular, the Roy Dean Film Grant from the Heart Productions, which gives you up to $30K in gear and financing. The Women Make Movies Production Grant, which can give you up to $50K in financing. The Film Fund, which can give you up to $10K in financing. The Stowe Short Film Production Grant, which can give you up to $50K in financing. These are just a few among many out there, and I will definitely put a much more thorough list of some that I recommend in the description below, so definitely be sure to check it out. Number 3, private investors and sponsorships. Seek out high net worth individuals or private investors or companies that also might have a vested interest in whatever the subject matter is of your film. One of the other things that you can do with this is you can offer to give the company or the investor a producer credit, or you could put their actual company logo at the end credits. You can also get some swag from them or different merchandise, and you can offer some product placement in the film if that's helpful. Again, a lot of times with a donation to a short film, they're not going to see any money back. So if you can give them value in other ways, that's going to be your key. Another example to use is if you have, let's say, an actor who wants a chance for a starring role, they're not usually in the lead role. Sometimes if they're willing to bankroll the entire film and be an executive producer and they can be that role they want to be, this is one way you can get full funding, even if it means just changing up your casting strategy to cast an actor you weren't looking at in the lead role, but it allows you to get your film made. And again, if you can do your research on this company or investor to really appeal to other parts of their history or other ways you can build a personal connection to help get them on board with you, whatever it takes, you got to get creative. This is sales all the way. So any other ways you can use sales tactics is really going to help you, and to practice getting good at that, since the rest of your career as a creative, you're always going to be pitching your idea and your potential and yourself as an artist. So doing this now is a great way to get in the habit of something you're always going to do the rest of your career. Number 4, throw a fundraiser event or a party. This is one of my favorite ideas that I've ever come across for funding in a book called The Art of Film Funding by Carol Lee Dean. In the book, Carol discusses a lot of different methods for financing, especially for short films or documentary films, which have a different funding structure. And one of the ideas in the book is one of the ways you can try to raise money in a much more fun fashion that doesn't feel as salesman-like is to throw an event such as a party or a barbecue. And it doesn't even need to be as formal as a black tie event at a nice venue that costs a lot of money to throw on. You can literally just do a house party or a barbecue of some kind. It can be very casual. And the idea is that you charge an admission fee for all the attendees. Let's just say it's $10 to get in at the door, and you make it clear from the get-go that their admission fee is going to go toward the project. And if you get enough people to come and you celebrate the event and maybe you even talk about the film, that's a really good way to genuinely showcase that you are trying to make this project, but you're trying to get creative as you do it, and you're not trying to dupe anybody about where their money is going. And who doesn't want to pay $5, $10 to go to an event and have fun. I think it's a great idea. You could also include raffles or prizes for people. If they pay a little more, they can get an additional prize like a raffle ticket, and this could go towards some benefit for the film, or you could auction off a set visit or something like that, just so that people are still supporting your film. And then now you're getting even more funds than just that initial fee they pay to get in. At the end of the day, you're bringing people together and you're making it social. And oftentimes being in sales mode is from a distance and it's not quite as fun. So this is a way to actually have fun with your fundraising and get creative as you do so. And the other thing is you really want to follow up with all the attendees once the project, let's say, gets made. You want to show them that their money did actually go to the project and you didn't just go pocket it and not make anything. Number 5, in-kind contributions and partnerships. In-kind contributions or services basically describes if a vendor or let's say a rental house wants to lend you a free camera package or a grip and electric package, which still really helps your budget because you wouldn't have to pay that couple grand or whatever it would be to afford this package. So that's one less thing on your budget that you have to worry about. Some of the other services that this can apply to are free locations, volunteer crew or discounted crew rates, free post-production services, or free facilities loaned to you that you would normally have to pay to rent. All these things can end up adding up and saving you so much money in the long run. And especially if you can get access to good locations or good facilities that would usually cost a lot, you're also increasing the production value of your film. So networking with your local film community or going to film meetups, screenings, or festivals, or sometimes these equipment rental vendors will also have their own events that they host in-house as a way to sort of promote their gear and get new clients or celebrate current clients. Especially in the tech world, there are a couple big expos that happen every year, and these are really good ways to go since a lot of the vendors will go and actually have a booth and they'll be showcasing their latest products. And so going to these, such as CineGear, which usually happens on the Paramount lot in Hollywood, that's a really good place to go. The other big one that happens in Las Vegas every year is NAB. So that's a massive expo. I have been before. It's an absolute blast. Definitely should go at least once, even if you're a little more of a creative than a technical person. Some of those vendors have really given me cheaper services that really allowed me to actually be able to use them for these projects where I had less budget to work with. The other thing you can do to incentivize some of these brands for in-kind services or discounted packages is to offer to maybe showcase some of their merch within your film. So you can offer product placement or a producer credit or their logo at the end of your credits. Target these newer rental vendors who are just starting up. They're competing with a lot of these much more established companies like Panavision or Arri, and they need the marketing. You can also approach film schools to see if they might be interested in helping sponsor, or they can help provide you with some crew members if they're still in school. Again, make sure to be ethical about all of that. You can also go to local businesses that might need some extra marketing, or they can be a producer or help add some craft services or maybe some coffee to the set. These are great ways to make a mutually beneficial rapport and start that relationship off on the right foot. Another way you can go is if you self-fund or put your own finances or savings into a project just to make it happen right away. But this can get very costly, especially since the cost of production in 2024, especially in LA, is quite high. I would not do this very often, and I wouldn't do too much if you're gonna do it unless maybe you're independently wealthy or your parents are and they don't mind. Great, keep making those films. But I definitely would not recommend doing this too much just from a financial standpoint. By utilizing one or a combination of all of these methods, you should be one step closer to be able to successfully fund your short film. That concludes the 5 best ways to get your short film funded. Comment below if you've had any other ideas to fund your short film, or if you've used any of these methods and they've successfully worked to fund your short film. I'd love to hear it, so definitely leave a comment below. If you want to learn more about the best ways to advance your career as an up-and-coming filmmaker, you can definitely check out this recent video I did here on the 5 best ways to advance your film career. Let me know if there are any other topics you want to see covered in a future video, and I will definitely make sure that we get them covered. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will definitely catch you next week where we continue to discuss different filmmaking techniques to take your narrative film career to the next level. So I will definitely catch you then.